The transport shuttle broke through the atmosphere of the station with a shudder that rattled Junho's teeth. He pressed his face against the small window, watching as the massive structure of Velcor Military Academy came into view. It hung in the void like a steel flower, its petals made of training halls and dormitories all rotating slowly around a central hub. Beyond it, a gas giant painted the darkness with swirls of orange and purple. Junho had dreamed of this moment for 2 years. Ever since the Galactic Council made first contact with Earth, ever since they opened their military academies to human applicants, he had wanted this. He was 23 years old, a former Korean Army sergeant, and now he was about to become the first human to graduate from an alien military school, if he could survive it. The shuttle docked with a metallic clang. The doors hissed open and Junho grabbed his bag. He stepped through the airlock and immediately felt it. Weight. Not the crushing force he expected, but a steady, insistent pressure that made his legs feel heavier. His shoulders sagged just slightly. The station's gravity was higher than Earth's. He knew this from the briefings, but knowing and feeling were different things. "Move along, Cadet," a voice barked. Junho turned to see a massive creature standing in the corridor. It had 6 limbs, 4 planted firmly on the ground, 2 crossed over its chitinous chest. Its eyes were compound, glittering like black gems. This was Instructor Krell, a Klendathi warrior who had served in 3 galactic wars. "Yes, sir," Junho said, straightening despite the weight. He walked forward, each step requiring just a bit more effort than normal. By the time he reached the processing station, his calves were burning. The processing room was filled with cadets from dozens of species. Tall ones, short ones, ones that floated, ones that skittered. Junho felt very alone until he heard a familiar sound. "Excuse me, coming through," someone said in Korean. He turned and saw her, a young woman, maybe 21, with her hair tied back in a tight bun. She was sweating. Her face flushed, and she was breathing harder than she should be. She caught his eye and grinned. "You must be Junho," she said, switching to English. "I'm Bora Choi. Looks like we're the only humans in this cycle." They shook hands. Her grip was firm, but her hand was trembling slightly. "Is it just me, or is the gravity really strong here?" Junho asked quietly. "It's not you," Bora said. "I checked. It's 1.8 times Earth standard. They call it training gravity, supposed to build strength." Junho's stomach sank. 1.8 times. That meant he was effectively carrying an extra 80% of his body weight just by standing. No wonder his legs hurt. The next few hours were a blur of medical checks, equipment assignments, and briefings. Junho was assigned to Squad 7 along with Bora and 3 aliens. There was Tavan, the Klendathi who stood nearly 3 meters tall and moved with casual power. There was Vorla, a being made of living crystal who communicated through musical tones that a translator converted to speech. And there was Nyx, a lean reptilian creature with golden eyes and scales that shimmered when he moved. By the time they reached their squad barracks, Junho was exhausted. The walk from the processing center should have taken 10 minutes. It felt like he had been hiking uphill for an hour. "You look tired, human," Tavan said. His translated voice was deep and resonant. "Is the gravity too much?" Junho wanted to say no. He wanted to stand tall and prove he belonged here, but his legs were shaking. "I'll adapt," he said instead. Tavan made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps. Or perhaps humans are simply too soft for military service. That night, Junho lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. Every muscle in his body ached. He had done nothing but walk around the station, and he felt like he had been doing squats for hours. Bora was in the bunk below him, and he could hear her moving, restless. "You awake?" she whispered. "Yeah. This is going to be harder than I thought." Junho didn't answer. He didn't trust his voice. The next morning, they met the rest of the Academy's cadets in the main training hall. There were 200 of them, arranged in perfect formations. Instructor Krell stood on a raised platform, his 4 legs planted wide, his 2 arms crossed. "Cadets," he said, his voice amplified to fill the enormous space. "You are here because you represent the best your worlds have to offer. You are here to become officers in the United Galactic Defense Force. But most of you will fail. Most of you are not strong enough, not smart enough, not disciplined enough." His compound eyes swept across the crowd and stopped on Junho and Bora. "Some of you come from worlds that are soft, low gravity, gentle climates. You will find no mercy here. This academy was built by warriors, for warriors. If you cannot meet our standards, you will be sent home." Junho felt every eye in the hall turn toward him and Bora. His face burned, but he kept his eyes forward. In 3 days, you will face the Iron Trial, Krell continued. It is a simple test, an obstacle course, full combat gear, and a strength assessment. If you cannot complete it, you have no place here. The assembly ended. As the cadets filed out, Junho heard whispers. The humans won't last a week. I heard their world only has 1G gravity. They're practically weightless. Logistics core, maybe. But combat, never. That afternoon, Junho went to the training gym. He needed to see what he was up against. The gym was massive, filled with equipment he didn't recognize. But in one corner, he saw something familiar. Weights. He approached the rack. The smallest weight was marked as 20 kilograms. On Earth, he could lift that easily with one hand. He gripped the handle and pulled. It barely moved. He used both hands, straining. The weight lifted, but it felt like 40 kilograms. Because it was. In this gravity, everything was heavier. Struggling already, a voice said. Junho turned to see Nyx watching him, those golden eyes unblinking. That is a child's weight. I lift it for warming up. Nyx reached out with one clawed hand and lifted the weight Junho had been struggling with. He curled it repeatedly, easily, as if it weighed nothing. Humans, Nyx said, and there was pity in his tone. You should not be here. That night, Junho couldn't sleep. He thought about the Iron Trial, 3 days away. 3 days to prepare for a test that would require him to lift weights that felt nearly twice as heavy as they should. 3 days to prove he wasn't too weak, too soft, too human. In the darkness, he heard Bora whisper, Junho? Yeah? We can do this, right? He wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe it. But doubt was a heavy thing, and in this place, everything was already too heavy. We'll try, he said finally. Outside their window, the gas giant turned slowly in the void, indifferent to the struggles of tiny creatures on a spinning station, trying to prove they were strong enough to stand among giants. The summons came the next morning. Juno and Bora were called to Instructor Krell's office immediately after breakfast. They walked through the corridors in silence, each step heavy with more than just the station's gravity. Krell's office was sparse and military. No decorations, no personal items, just a desk and chairs built for various body types. The instructor sat behind the desk, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the viewing port behind him. Sit, he said. They sat. Juno kept his back straight despite the exhaustion that never seemed to leave his body anymore. I have reviewed your performance in the Iron Trial, Krell began. You both showed determination. You completed the course within time limits despite obvious physical disadvantage. However, you failed the strength requirement. This is not acceptable for combat certification. Junho felt his hopes crumbling. Here it came. The dismissal. The reassignment to logistics or communications or some other role where humans wouldn't be a liability. Therefore, Krell continued, I am recommending you be transferred to the support division. You will train for non-combat roles. Medical, technical, administrative. You will still serve the Galactic Defense Force, but not in direct combat capacity. Sir, Bora said, her voice tight. Request permission to retry the test. Krell's mandibles clicked. Negative. The test is administered once per cycle. You will have another opportunity in 6 months, should you choose to petition for combat recertification at that time. But I advise against it. Your species is simply not built for military service in standard conditions. Standard conditions? Junho heard himself say. Sir, with respect, these aren't standard conditions for us. Earth's gravity is 1G. The station is 1.8. We're training with an 80% handicap. Every species faces challenges, Krell said. The Klindathi come from a 2.2 gravity world. This is light for them. The standard was set at 1.8 as a compromise among all member species. We do not adjust training for individual worlds. A soldier must be able to operate in any environment. There was no arguing with that logic. Junho nodded slowly. Understood, sir. You are dismissed. Report to Support Division Administration by 1400 hours. They left the office in defeat. Bora was blinking rapidly, fighting back tears. Junho felt numb. They had come so far, worked so hard, and it wasn't enough. I need to walk, Bora said. Just walk. Clear my head. They wandered the station aimlessly, passing training halls and dormitories, mess halls and observation decks. Eventually, they found themselves outside a classroom where a tactical theory lecture was in progress. Through the open door, they could hear the instructor speaking. And this brings us to environmental assault operations, the voice said. When attacking a planet, gravity must be considered a primary tactical factor. Junho stopped walking. Something in those words caught his attention. Come on, Bora said, but Junho shook his head. Wait, I want to hear this. They stood in the doorway, out of sight. Inside, a holographic display showed various planets rotating slowly. The instructor, a tall being with too many joints in its arms, pointed at each one. High-gravity worlds require specialized equipment and acclimatization time. Low-gravity worlds present different challenges. For example, this planet, designation Earth, 1.0 gravity, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, quite comfortable by most standards. A cadet in the front row raised a limb. Instructor, isn't that the human homeworld? Correct. An unusually light world. Most inhabited planets fall between 1.4 and 2.1 gravity. Earth is an outlier. Another cadet spoke up and Junho recognized the voice. It was Drix, a floating gas bag species from Squad 3. Imagine training in such low gravity. You would feel like you could fly. The instructor made a sound that might have been laughter. Indeed. Standard protocol requires any personnel visiting low-gravity worlds to wear weighted suits. Otherwise, they develop muscle atrophy and bone density loss. The body adapts to the environment it experiences. Junho's mind went completely still. Then it started racing. The body adapts to the environment it experiences. Bora, he said slowly, what if we've been looking at this wrong? What do you mean? Everyone keeps saying we're weak, that humans are too soft for combat. But what if we're not weak? What if we're just training with a massive handicap? Bora frowned. We know that. We just discussed it with Krell. No, listen. Really think about it. Junho pulled out his personal datapad and started searching. Earth is 1G. The station is 1.8. That means everything here weighs 80% more than it does at home. But that also means that at home, everything would weigh only 55% of what it weighs here. So that weight test. 150 kilograms. In Earth gravity, it would effectively weigh only 83 kilograms. I can lift 83 kilograms easily. I could probably lift it 10 times, 20 times. Bora's eyes widened. You're saying if we were on Earth, we would have passed? Not just passed. We would have dominated. Junho was scrolling through data now, comparing planetary specifications. Look at this. Clendith Prime Taven's world, 2.2 gravity. Nyx's world, Scareth, 1.9 gravity. Vorla's home, 2.1 gravity. Every species here comes from a heavier world than ours. But that doesn't help us, Bora said. We're not on Earth, we're here. Junho stopped scrolling. He looked at her. What if we trained in Earth gravity? Built our strength there, then came back here? The station doesn't have Earth gravity zones, but it has training rooms with variable gravity. I've seen them. They're used for specialized operations training. Assault teams preparing for light world missions, Bora caught on. We request access to those rooms. Train our strength at 1G. Build up our capacity there where we're not fighting the gravity itself. Exactly. And then when we're back in 1.8, we'll be stronger. Strong enough to meet the standard. They looked at each other. And for the first time in days, Junho saw hope in Bora's eyes. That afternoon, instead of reporting to Support Division, Junho filed a request for access to the variable gravity training rooms. He cited the need to maintain Earth standard fitness as per the regulations regarding low-gravity species adaptation. It was technically true, even if his actual intent was different. The request was approved automatically. Apparently, no one had considered that humans might use light gravity to become stronger in heavy gravity. That evening, Junho and Bora stood in Training Room 12. It was small, about 10 meters square, with basic gym equipment. Junho accessed the gravity controls and set them to 1.0. The change was immediate and glorious. The weight that had been pressing down on him for weeks suddenly lifted. His body felt light, almost buoyant. He could breathe deeply without effort. Moving was easy again. Oh my God, Bora whispered. She stretched and her joints cracked. I forgot what this felt like. Junho walked to the weight rack. The same weights that had felt impossibly heavy in the main gym now felt normal. He picked up a 40-kilogram weight with one hand. On Earth it was challenging but manageable. Here in 1G it was the same. He started lifting. Curls, presses, squats. His muscles responded properly, working the way they were designed to work. Bora joined him, and soon they were both training with an intensity that had been impossible in the heavy gravity. 2 hours later, exhausted but satisfied, they stopped. This is going to work. Bora said. She was breathing hard, but it was the good breathlessness of a workout, not the constant struggle of just existing. We train here every night, Junho said. Build real strength, the kind that will translate when we're back in high gravity. We don't tell anyone. We just get stronger slowly until we're ready to prove ourselves. How long? Hunyo considered. Months. Maybe 3-4 months of serious training. Then we petition for a retest. They shook hands on it. A pact between the only two humans in a place that had decided they didn't belong. Over the following weeks, they developed a routine. During the day, they attended their reassigned classes in the support division, learning logistics and administration. They moved through the station's heavy gravity with the same struggle as before, still appearing to be the weak humans everyone expected. But at night, they trained. In the 1G room, they pushed themselves harder than they ever had on Earth. They lifted weights that would crush them in the station's gravity. They ran until their lungs burned. They did exercises specifically designed to build the strength they would need. And slowly, impossibly slowly, their bodies adapted, not to the light gravity, but in spite of it. They were building strength in easy conditions to use in hard ones. 2 months in, Junho noticed he wasn't breathing as hard when walking to class. The constant ache in his legs had faded. He still moved slower than the other species, still looked uncomfortable, but internally he was changing. 3 months in, he picked up a supply crate that was marked as requiring 2 people. He carried it himself without thinking. An instructor saw him and looked surprised but said nothing. 4 months in, Junho and Bora met in training room 12 as usual. But this time, Junho adjusted the gravity to 1.8 before they started. The weight came back, the pressure. But it felt different now. Still heavy, yes. Still challenging. But not crushing. Not impossible. 3 days passed like a slow nightmare. Junho spent every free moment in the gym, pushing his body to adapt. His muscles screamed. His joints ached. Simple tasks became ordeals. Walking to the mess hall left him breathing hard. Climbing stairs made his thighs burn. Even sitting in lectures, the weight of his own body pressed down on him relentlessly. Bora trained beside him, equally determined, equally exhausted. They didn't talk much. There wasn't energy for conversation. They simply endured. On the morning of the iron trial, Junho woke before dawn. His body felt like stone. He had barely slept, and what little rest he got was filled with dreams of falling, of weights crushing down, of Instructor Krell's voice saying he wasn't good enough. The cadets assembled in the armory at 600 hours. The room smelled of metal and machine oil. Rows of combat armor hung on racks, gleaming under harsh lights. Each suit was a masterpiece of engineering, designed to enhance strength and protect against energy weapons. They were also heavy. Suit up, Instructor Krell commanded. Junho approached his assigned armor. The chest plate alone must have weighed 20 kilograms. In this gravity, it felt like 36. He lifted it over his head and settled it onto his shoulders. The weight drove down through his spine, into his legs, into the floor. He locked it in place and reached for the arm sections. By the time he was fully armored, he could barely stand. The suit's total weight was 40 kilograms. With the increased gravity, it felt like 72. He looked over at Bora. She was fully suited, but her face was pale and sweat already dripped down her temples. Tavin looked comfortable in his armor. Nyx moved with easy grace. Vorla's crystalline form simply absorbed the suit's weight without strain. They were built for this. Humans were not. "Follow me," Krell said, leading them from the armory to the training grounds. The obstacle course stretched across an enormous arena. It began with a sprint across broken terrain. Then came walls to climb, trenches to cross, barriers to vault. In the middle section, automated turrets fired training lasers, non-lethal but painful. The final section was a long crawl under live fire, followed by the strength test. "You will complete this course in full armor, carrying your weapon and ammunition," Krell announced. "Your time will be recorded. Those who fail to complete the course within 30 minutes will be removed from combat training. Those who fail the final strength test will be removed from the academy." Junho's mouth went dry. 30 minutes. In armor that felt like it was crushing him. Carrying a rifle that weighed another 10 kilograms. "Squad 7, you're first," Krell said. Tavin stepped to the starting line. A buzzer sounded and he exploded forward. His powerful legs ate up the distance. He scaled the walls with terrifying efficiency. The laser fire barely slowed him. He dove under the crawl section, armored body scraping against the ground, and emerged on the other side in just under 12 minutes. The strength test waited at the end. A massive weight sat on the ground, a solid block of metal with handles on either side. The display read 150 kilograms. Tavin gripped the handles, bent his legs, and lifted. The weight rose smoothly. He pressed it overhead, once, twice, 3 times. He set it down and walked away without breathing hard. Nix went next. He was faster than Tavin, his lean body built for speed, but he struggled more with the obstacles, his lighter frame less suited for climbing. He finished in 18 minutes. At the strength test, he barely managed 3 lifts, his arms shaking violently on the final one. Forla used psychic abilities to assist, floating over some obstacles. An instructor marked down her score for not completing the course purely physically. She finished in 22 minutes and lifted the weight with a combination of physical and mental effort. Then it was Junho's turn. He stepped to the line. His heart hammered against his ribs. The buzzer sounded. He ran, or tried to. The armor turned his sprint into a heavy jog. His boots pounded against the ground, each step a conscious effort. The first wall loomed ahead. He jumped, caught the top edge, and pulled. His arm screamed. The armor dragged at him like an anchor. He got one leg over, then the other, and dropped down the far side. 29 minutes left. The terrain got rougher. Rocks and debris scattered across the path. He stumbled, caught himself, kept moving. His breathing was ragged. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes. The laser turrets activated. Bolts of light streaked past him. One caught him in the shoulder, a sharp burning pain. He ignored it and kept running. 15 minutes left. The crawl section. He dropped to his belly and began pulling himself forward. The armor scraped against the ground. The weight pressed him down into the dirt. Above him, lasers crisscrossed in deadly patterns. He moved inch by inch, the rifle clutched in his hands, adding its weight to everything else. 3 minutes left. He was going to fail. The realization hit him as he emerged from the crawl. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely stand. The strength test waited ahead, and he had no strength left to give. 2 minutes left. He stumbled forward and fell to his knees in front of the weight. 150 kilograms. In this gravity, it effectively weighed 270 kilograms. More than 3 times his body weight. 1 minute left. He gripped the handles. The metal was cold against his palms. He took a breath, bent his legs, and pulled. The weight shifted, barely. He pulled harder, every muscle in his body engaged. His legs straightened. The weight rose, centimeter by centimeter. His vision started to blur. The weight reached his chest. He gasped and pressed upward, 1 lift. The weight overhead, arms locked, shaking. He lowered it with control and immediately set up for the 2nd lift. No rest, no time, he pulled. The weight rose again, slower this time. Halfway up, his right arm began to give out. He compensated with his left, the weight tilting dangerously. He got it to his chest and tried to press. His arms wouldn't move. He pushed with everything he had. The weight rose a few centimeters and stopped. His muscles simply refused. He lowered the weight back down. Time, Instructor Krell announced. Junho stood there, hands still on the handles, chest heaving. 1 lift. He had managed 1 lift. Cadet Junho Kim, Krell said, his voice flat. 1 successful lift. Below minimum standard, fail. The word echoed across the arena. Fail. Junho stepped back from the weight. His legs gave out and he sat down hard, armor clanking. He watched as Bora took her turn. She was stronger than she looked. She made it through the course in 26 minutes faster than Junho. But at the strength test, the same thing happened. 1 lift maximum effort. A 2nd attempt that failed halfway. She collapsed after, gasping for air. Cadet Bora Choi, Krell said. 1 successful lift. Below minimum standard, fail. That evening, Squad 7 gathered in their barracks. Junho sat on his bunk, still in his undersuit, too exhausted to shower. Taven stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Nix was cleaning his scales. Forla hummed softly, a sound like wind chimes. You tried hard, Forla said finally, the translator rendering her musical tones into words. That means something. It means nothing if we failed, Bora said bitterly. She was sitting against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. Instructor Krell will make his recommendation tomorrow. Taven said. He will suggest you transfer to logistics, non-combat roles. It is not shameful. Many species cannot meet combat standards. We're not incapable, Junho said quietly. We're just not built for this gravity." "Then you are incapable," Nix said, not unkindly. "A soldier must be able to fight in any environment. If you cannot adapt, you should not be here." Junho had no answer. Nix was right. This was the standard. If humans couldn't meet it, maybe they didn't belong in combat roles. Later, after the others had gone to sleep, Bora climbed up to Junho's bunk. She sat on the edge and they didn't speak for a long time. "I don't want to quit," she finally whispered. "Neither do I. But I don't know how we can pass. We're already at our limit and it's not enough." Junho stared at the ceiling. The station hummed around them, a constant reminder of where they were. Far from Earth, far from home, in a place that didn't want them. "We'll figure something out," he said, trying to sound confident. But in the darkness, with failure fresh in his mind and his body aching from trying too hard, he wasn't sure he believed it. "We're ready," Bora said, feeling the same thing he felt. Junho nodded. Time to show them what humans can really do. The midterm combat evaluation was announced 3 weeks after Junho decided they were ready. It was a tournament-style competition where cadets would face each other in powered armor combat inside simulated battle environments. Every squad was required to participate, including the support division cadets. Junho filed his petition the day after the announcement. He requested reclassification to combat status and permission to compete in the tournament. Bora filed an identical petition. Instructor Krell called them to his office again. "This is unexpected," Krell said, his compound eyes studying them. "You have been performing adequately in support roles. Why would you want to return to combat training where you have already demonstrated inadequacy?" "We've been training, sir," Junho said simply. "We'd like another chance to prove ourselves." "Training how?" "The support division does not include combat conditioning." "Personal time, sir. Physical fitness maintenance." Krell made a clicking sound. "The tournament is not a fitness test. It is full-contact combat simulation. You will be matched against cadets who have been training for combat operations exclusively. Cadets from heavy worlds who are naturally stronger and faster than you." "We understand, sir." Krell studied them for a long moment. "Very well. Your petitions are approved. You will represent the support division in the tournament. When you are eliminated in the first round, perhaps you will accept your limitations and focus on the roles you are suited for." The tournament brackets were posted the next day. There were 64 competitors, organized into a single elimination format. Junho looked at his assignment and felt his stomach drop. First round opponent, Tavin. Bora found him in the corridor, staring at the bracket display. She checked her own assignment and laughed, though there was no humor in it. "At least you get someone you know," she said. "I'm fighting Krell, heavy world champion from last cycle. We knew this wouldn't be easy." "There's not easy, and then there's fighting the biggest guy in the academy in round 1. Junho couldn't argue with that. Taven was enormous, powerful, and had been training in combat operations for 6 months while Junho had been learning supply chain management. They had 5 days to prepare. The combat arena was a massive spherical chamber that could generate various environments through hard light, projections, and gravitational manipulation. For the tournament, it was set to a standard battlefield simulation with cover, obstacles, and environmental hazards. The gravity remained at 1.8 throughout. Each combatant wore powered armor that enhanced strength and provided shielding. The weapons were energy-based with a stun setting. Getting hit wouldn't kill you, but it would hurt, and enough hits would trigger your armor's safety systems and end the match. Junho stood in the preparation room, sealing his armor. It still felt heavy, but not like it once had. The weight was there, but it was distributed, manageable. He had lifted heavier things in training. "Cadet Junho Kim, report to Arena 3, the announcement system called." He walked through the tunnel into the arena. The lights were bright, and he could see viewing galleries filled with cadets and instructors. At the opposite entrance, Taven emerged, his massive frame making the armor look almost small. "I will try not to hurt you too badly." Taven's voice crackled over the communication channel. "You should yield when you realize you cannot win." "Thanks for the concern," Junho replied. "But I'll fight to the end." The referee, a floating drone, announced the rules. Combat ends when one fighter's armor is disabled. One fighter yields or 10 minutes elapse. If time expires, the fighter with the most hits scored wins. Fighters ready? Junho gripped his energy rifle and nodded. "Begin." Taven charged immediately. His strategy was obvious: use his size and strength to overwhelm Junho quickly. He fired as he ran, energy bolts streaking across the arena. Junho dove behind cover, the shot splashing against the barrier where he had been standing. In the old days, 6 months ago, Junho would have been too slow. The armor's weight would have made him clumsy, but months of training had changed his body. He moved with purpose, rolled to new cover, came up firing. His shots caught Taven in the chest plate. The shields flared but held. Taven adjusted course, coming at Junho from an angle. Junho backpedaled, maintaining distance, firing in controlled bursts. Taven closed the gap. He swung a massive fist that would have crushed Junho's helmet if it connected. But Junho ducked, the blow whistling overhead. He slammed the butt of his rifle into Taven's side joint where the armor was weaker. Taven grunted and swung again. They traded blows for 30 seconds. Junho gave ground, using his smaller size to stay mobile. He couldn't match Taven's power, so he didn't try. Instead, he targeted weak points, used hit-and-run tactics, made Taven work for every hit. A massive hand caught Junho's shoulder and threw him. He hit the ground hard, rolled, came up firing. His shots were getting through now, Taven's shields weakening. But his own shields were dropping too. The drone announced, "Both fighters at 40% shield capacity." Taven roared and charged again. This time, Junho didn't retreat. He planted his feet and met the charge head-on. It was insane. It should have been suicide. Taven outweighed him by 100 kilograms and was born on a heavier world. But Junho had been training for 4 months in low gravity, building strength specifically for moments like this. When Taven crashed into him, Junho braced and held his ground. The impact drove the breath from his lungs. His legs screamed, but he didn't fall. Taven seemed shocked. He pushed harder, trying to drive Junho back. Junho set his stance, activated his armor's servos, and pushed back. They were locked together, a test of pure strength. For 5 seconds they held there, neither giving ground. Then Junho twisted. It was a technique from his Earth military training, using leverage instead of power. Taven's momentum worked against him. He stumbled, off balance for just a moment. Junho's rifle came up. He fired point blank into Taven's chest. The shields failed. Taven's armor registered multiple direct hits. Alarms blared. "Match!" the referee drone announced. Winner, Junho Kim. The arena fell silent. Junho stood there, breathing hard, barely able to believe what had just happened. Taven was frozen, staring at his armor's display showing his disabled shields. "How?" Taven finally said. "You were weak. You could barely walk when you arrived." "I adapted," Junho said simply. The viewing galleries erupted. Junho could see faces pressed against the transparent walls, aliens from dozens of species all staring in disbelief. In the instructor section, he saw Krell standing, his entire body rigid with shock. Junho's legs gave out and he sat down hard. The armor's weight, the fight's exertion, the adrenaline crash, all of it hit him at once. But he was grinning inside his helmet. Bora fought her match next. Junho watched from the gallery. She faced Krell, a boulder-like being from a 2.3 gravity world. Everyone expected her to be crushed. The match started and Bora moved like nothing Junho had seen from her before. She was fast, precise, tactical. She couldn't overpower Krell, but she didn't need to. She wore him down hit after hit, never letting him land his devastating blows. 12 minutes later, Bora won by points. The tournament continued over the next 2 weeks. Junho advanced through the brackets, each match harder than the last. He lost eventually in the semifinals to a fighter who simply had more experience. But he had proven his point. Bora made it to the quarterfinals before being eliminated. At the tournament's end, Instructor Krell called both of them to his office once again. They stood before his desk, still sore from their matches. "Explain," Krell said flatly. "Sir?" Junho asked. "Explain how 2 humans who failed basic strength requirements 4 months ago are now competing at elite levels. Explain how you held your ground against a Klendathi in full armor. Explain how Cadet Bora outmaneuvered a heavy world champion." Junho met his eyes. "We trained in Earth gravity, sir. Built our strength there, where our bodies work properly. Then we came back here stronger. You used light gravity to become stronger in heavy gravity?" "Yes, sir. We turned our weakness into a training advantage." Krell was silent for a long moment. "That is actually quite clever. Unorthodox, but clever. Does this mean we can return to combat training?" Bora asked. "It means," Krell said slowly, that I may have misjudged your species. You are not weak. You simply come from a gentle world, but you have proven that humans can adapt, can overcome, can compete. Yes, you are reinstated to combat training. Full status, relief flooded through Junho. They had done it. Against all odds, they had proven themselves. However, Krell continued, you should know that your performance has caused significant discussion among the faculty. Some instructors are arguing that we should adjust standards for low-gravity species. Create separate brackets, modified requirements. No, Junho said immediately. Sir, respectfully, no. We don't want special treatment. We want to meet the same standards as everyone else. That's the whole point. Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. You sound like a soldier, Cadet Kim. Very well. You will train to the standard. Nothing more, nothing less. That night, Squad 7 celebrated in their barracks. Forla created light patterns with her crystalline body. Nyx brought food from his homeworld. Taven to everyone's Serpi. The graduation requirements were simple and brutal. Every cadet who wanted to earn combat certification had to complete the Crucible, a 72-hour field exercise that tested every skill they had learned. It took place on Kratos Minor, a moon with 1.9 gravity and an atmosphere that was barely breathable. The temperature swung from 50 degrees during the day to -30 at night. Squad 7 stood in the briefing room with 30 other squads, watching as Instructor Krell laid out the mission parameters. You will be dropped at coordinates scattered across the target zone, Krell said. Your objective is to reach the rally point 100 kilometers away within 48 hours. You will carry full combat loads, 70 kilograms of equipment per cadet. You will face simulated enemy contacts, environmental hazards, and equipment failures. 30% of you will not make it to the rally point. That is acceptable. That is expected. A holographic map appeared showing the terrain. Mountains, valleys, frozen wastes, and rocky badlands. Junho studied it, his mind already calculating routes and challenges. At the rally point, you will receive your final objective, Krell continued. A fortified position that must be breached. The details are classified until you arrive. Complete the breach and you graduate. Fail, and you repeat the cycle. Medical evacuation is available at any time, but it means automatic failure. Questions? No one spoke. Good. You deploy in 6 hours. Dismissed. The transport ship that carried them to Kratos Minor was cramped and cold. Unyo sat with his squad, checking and rechecking his gear. 70 kilograms of equipment. In 1.9 gravity, it would feel like 133 kilograms. More weight than his own body. You ready for this? Bora asked. She was across the bay with her own squad, but they had found a moment to talk. As ready as I can be, Junho said. You? Terrified, but in a good way. The ship shuddered as it entered atmosphere. The pilot's voice came over the speaker. 30 seconds to drop. Good luck down there. The bay doors opened. Wind howled through the gap, frigid and vicious. One by one, squads jumped out, dropping into the darkness below. When Squad 7's turn came, Junho took a breath and stepped into nothing. The drop lasted 5 seconds before his armor's thrusters kicked in, slowing his descent. He hit the ground hard, legs buckling under the combined weight of his body, armor, and equipment. The gravity of Kratos Minor grabbed him immediately, heavier than the station, heavier than anything he had trained in. He activated his helmet display. His squadmates were scattered within a kilometer. The rally point was marked 100 kilometers to the north. Squad 7, sound off. Taven's voice came through the comms. One by one, they reported in. All 5 members accounted for. Unyo looked at the terrain around him. Rocky, barren, with a thin atmosphere that made his lungs work harder even with the armor's support. The sun was just setting, which meant they would be marching through the night. Move out, Taven ordered. They started walking. Within an hour, Junho understood why so many failed the Crucible. Every step was a battle. The weight pressed down relentlessly. The cold seeped through his armor's heating system. The terrain was treacherous, loose rocks and sudden drops, ravines and cliffs. His legs burned. His back ached. The straps of his pack cut into his shoulders even through the armor. But he had been here before, in a sense. He had spent months learning to endure discomfort, to push through pain, to keep moving when his body screamed for rest. They marched through the night. 6 hours in, Nyx fell. His ankle twisted on loose stone and he went down hard. Forla helped him up, but he was limping badly. Can you continue? Taven asked. Yes. Nix hissed through pain. I will not fail here. They redistributed his load, each member taking an extra 5 kilograms. Yunho felt the added weight settle onto his shoulders. 138 kilograms now. Nearly twice his body weight, and they still had 90 kilometers to go. Dawn came with brutal cold. The temperature had dropped to -25. Yunho's fingers were numb inside his gloves. His breath frosted on the inside of his helmet. They stopped to eat, forcing down high-calorie rations that tasted like sawdust. We are making good time, Taven said, checking the map. If we maintain pace, we will reach the rally point with 8 hours to spare. But the universe had other plans. At hour 20, they encountered their first simulated enemy contact. Training drones appeared from behind a rock formation, firing stun rounds. The squad took cover and returned fire. The fight lasted 10 minutes and cost them precious energy. Vorla took a hit to her leg that cracked her crystalline structure. She could still move, but slower now. At hour 30, Junho's heating system failed. The display showed a malfunction in the power distribution. He tried to reroute, but the system was locked. He would have to complete the march with no protection against the cold. Request permission to share heat distribution, Vorla said immediately. My crystalline structure does not require external heating. She reprogrammed her suit's heating system to create a thermal field around Junho. It helped, but not enough. He was still cold and getting colder. They pushed on. Hour 40 brought a sandstorm. Visibility dropped to meters. They had to rope themselves together to avoid getting separated. The wind drove grit into every joint of their armor. Yunho stumbled repeatedly, caught by the rope each time. Hour 48. They crested a ridge and saw the rally point below. A temporary base, lights glowing in the darkness. They had made it with 4 hours to spare, but they were destroyed. Junho could barely stand. His legs shook with every step. Nix was being half-carried by Taven. Vorla had cracks running through her body. Only Taven seemed relatively intact. They reported to the command tent. Instructor Krell was there, along with other instructors. He looked at Squad 7 and nodded. You made it. Well done. Rest for 4 hours, then receive your final objective. Those 4 hours passed like minutes. Yunho collapsed in a heated tent, too exhausted to even remove his armor. He closed his eyes and was instantly asleep. All squads report to briefing. The announcement woke him. It felt like he had just closed his eyes. They gathered in the command tent. 23 squads had made it. 30% failure rate, just as predicted. Yunho saw other cadets who looked worse than he felt. Some were injured. All were exhausted. Krell activated the holographic display. It showed a massive bunker built into the side of a mountain. Your final objective. A fortified position with reinforced doors. To breach it, you must use a magnetic ram. The ram weighs 300 kilograms. In this gravity, effectively 570 kilograms. Junho did the math automatically, more than 7 times his body weight. The ram requires 4 operators to carry it to the door and hold it in place for 90 seconds while it burns through. If you drop it, it resets. Any squad that successfully breaches the door graduates. You have 6 hours. Begin. The race to the bunker was chaos. Squads spread out, each taking their own routes up the mountain. Squad 7 moved as fast as their damaged bodies allowed. Junho's legs were cramping. His back was on fire. Every breath hurt. They reached the bunker after 2 hours of climbing. Other squads were already there, attempting the breach. Junho watched as a squad lifted their ram, got it to the door, and held it for 30 seconds before someone's strength gave out. The ram fell. They had to start over. Squad 7 approached their designated door. The ram sat on the ground, massive and imposing. Mission Control's voice crackled over comms. The ram requires 4 operators to lift and hold steady for 90 seconds while it cycles. Taven moved to the ram. His exosuit's servo whined and sparked, damaged from the march. Nix could barely stand on his twisted ankle. Vorla's cracks had widened during the climb. I can barely hold myself up, Taven admitted. The servo damage is too severe. Instructor Krell's voice came over the comm, speaking directly to them. Squad 7, you can withdraw with honor. 3rd place is respectable. You have already proven yourselves. Junho looked at the ram. 300 kilograms, 570 in this gravity. 4 operators required, but they only had 2 who could possibly lift it. He looked at Bora. She was with Squad 12 at the next door over, but she heard the transmission. She looked back at him through her helmet. Junho saw the same thought in her eyes that was in his mind. They had trained for months. built strength that no one expected, turned their weakness into advantage. If there was ever a time to prove what humans could do, it was now. Junho moved to the ram. Bora left her squad and came to join him. "What are you doing?" Tavin asked. "We're going to try," Junho said. He gripped the handles on one side. Bora took the other side. Together they bent their legs and pulled. The ram shifted, then rose. Centimeter by centimeter it came off the ground. Junho's muscles screamed. His vision blurred. The weight was impossible, crushing, more than any human should be able to lift. But he had spent 4 months lifting impossible weights. He had marched 100 kilometers with more than his body weight on his back. He had refused to quit when everyone said he should. The ram reached waist height, then chest height. They shuffled forward, getting it close to the door. The magnetic clamps engaged with a solid thunk. The ram began its 90-second cycle. Junho held it. His arms shook violently. Sweat poured down his face.